Thank you for having me. Hello, everybody. Adab Arze. And yeah, so what's hit me with the first question?
Okay, so what I was thinking was, I wanted to dive right into your latest work or your latest obsession, which is the Damascus steel or knives you make with the Damascus steel method. What I propose is, and you tell me if this is fine. I went through your reel that talks about the first job you did, the first knife you did and sold. I was planning to share that reel, or Megha, can we share that reel, or can I share that reel? And Saad can walk us through the process. So, just to give a context to everyone here, um, Saad has recorded the process of him making his first knife, and it starts with plates of
First Damascus knife.
the first Damascus knife.
Yeah.
It starts with the absolute raw materials, and then it ends with him holding the knife in his hand. I think it's about 5 minutes or so, and we can share it on the screen here. People can watch it, and you can give your commentary on that. What do you think?
Sure. Yeah. We can probably just start off with what Damascus steel is. Damascus steel is a steel of antiquity that is valued and treasured all over the world for its sharpness and for its edge retention and its flexibility. So it was a very important steel for sword making. The name Damascus is because the swords used to be made in Turkey, or Damascus, a city in Turkey, but the steel was actually forged in South India. So it was South Indian blacksmiths who would forge the raw steel and then export it to the Middle East. And from Middle East, it would be converted into different swords, ornamental weapons, or actual weapons of war. And then they would be sold into Europe. So that's how the Europeans got to know it as Damascus steel. But it is essentially a very Indian art form. And unfortunately, what's happened is that this is like what 2000 years back. Over a period of time, the art form has died off in India. Very few people, if any, do Damascus steel work anymore. So this is something that is at least I started working on it about a year and a half back, and yeah, so I've seemed to have some sort of success with making Damascus steel. So yeah, you can go ahead. Sure, go ahead. So the idea about Damascus steel is that you take two different steel alloys and you layer it up, and then you forge weld it together, and you manipulate those layers to create different patterns. So once the blade is completely forged out, hardened, hand sanded, polished, and all, and then when you dip it in acid, the acid reacts to the different layers differently, and it reveals the pattern within the blade. So here you can see me stacking up to two different steel alloys. Here's the initial billet, and the thing is, you have to bring it up to a certain forge welding temperature. So too hot and the pieces don't too cold and the pieces don't stick to each other. Too hot, and when you're trying to smash the pieces together, they fall apart. So you have to sort of balance temperature and force. If you push too hard, if you hammer too hard, then the pieces are at a near molten state, so they split apart. So you've got to nudge the metal and convince it to weld to each other, the layers, and then it becomes one solid block. And then you manipulate those blocks into different patterns, and you get a Damascus pattern out of it. So yeah, in essence, that is what Damascus steel is. In modern times, with modern steels, it is the process. Even though the idea behind the pattern is the same, but the process is a little bit different. Nowadays we refer to it as pattern welded steel, because we are welding individual layers. We are not getting Damascus steel out of a foundry.
Hey, I have a question.
We're actually doing it. Yeah. So you can see the pattern that comes out maybe a little bit in this video.
What is the solution you're dipping
So
it
this is ferric chloride solution. It reacts with I think the molybdenum in the steel, and it doesn't react with the nickel in the steel. So a steel that has a high nickel content remains shiny and silver, while some steel with molybdenum or there's another element. But yeah, if it has that, then it becomes dark. So you use those dark and light contrasting layers to create a pattern out of it.
So what you're doing here is you've forge welded different plates, different alloys of steel.
That's right.
And then you've dipped it into ferric chloride, and that will show the different alloys, sort of a cross section of the different alloys.
That's right. That reveals the pattern. It basically is etching the steel differently.
And you started off with 19 layers, and I know
so
going up to 76 layers in this. That is insane.
So you can go up to like 1,000 layers. I think the maximum I've done is 800 layers. So because you can start with as many layers as you'd like, but the more layers you have, the more chance of failure you have between the layers. So if I start with 10 layers, then there are 10 chances of it failing. Well, basically it's 10 into 10. It's about 100 chances of failure. It's something that's very critical, because even the steel has to be absolutely clean, and the gap between the layers has to be absolutely absolutely no gap, basically, because if oxygen gets in between the layers, when the steel heats up, it creates scale, and that scale forms because steel reacts with oxygen. Think of it as like high temperature rust, and that scale prevents the layers from sticking to each other. So it's a little surgical process where you clean everything, where you grind everything flat, you clean it properly, no fingerprints, no residual oils, nothing, and then you make a billet, you put it in the forge, you keep fluxing it, and then you weld it together. So coming to your question, so ideally you start with 20 layers. So you start with about 20 layers, and you can finish forge welding those 20 layers. So now I know I have a solid 20 layer billet, and then I fold it once more. So that now I have only one forge weld, and I get 40 layers. And then I fold it once more. I've got another one forge weld, and I've got 80 layers. Fold it again, keep folding it until you can build up your layer count.
And is that what you did, or you had 20 layers and then you put them together?
No, it's more efficient to do it like 20 layers, stretch it out, and then fold it, and then keep continuing that way. You can also, depending on your pattern, so sometimes you have patterns that go one way and then another pattern that goes another way. So you can make a billet separately for this, make another billet for this. Now this is called a ladder pattern. So you can see I put these indentations within the billet. If you can just go back to the previous image.
I'm trying to do that. How do I?
So this is.
Sorry, I'm not.
Yeah. So once you get like a parallel layer, sorry, you can go ahead.
How do I go back to the previous one? Do I just?
You can click on the arrow, I think.
Right. Got it.
Yeah. Okay. So you put these indentations in this, right? And then you grind it out. So what happens is, in this specific pattern, you start off with parallel lines. But when you press these indentations in this, the parallel lines start becoming wavy. So this is called a ladder pattern, because the pattern goes one way and then it turns around, goes the other way, one way and the other way. So you can see it in the final reveal, how the pattern develops. So this is quite a simple pattern to do. This is my first time. And this is the first time I think I crossed above 100 layers for this knife. Yeah.
What are you doing here? Is that a cutout of what you want the knife?
Yes. So once the billet is forged out to thickness and the length and the width, then I prefer cutting it out, because you can also forge it out into a knife, but it disturbs the pattern a lot. So if I have a specific pattern in mind, I achieve that with the billet and then I cut the knife out. If some patterns are helpful if you can forge the knife out of it, but this was my first Damascus knife, so I prefer just cutting it out and taking a look at it. So I think I lost patience also by then. I just wanted to see the knife finished. So who's going to forge it out? I'm too tired, so cut it out.
And you were doing this day in and day out. I think it said day 3, day 4. Wow, this is insane.
Yeah, this is, I think, the pattern that's revealed. So you can see the pattern is nice. You can see those lines, imaginary lines, I would say, in the pattern, where it's very dense and it becomes very sparse. Very dense and sparse. So that is the ladder effect that I was going for. All those individual colors, the silver and the black, are actually different layers that have been twisted and hammered into becoming one solid billet.
So you get different colors because you're essentially using different alloys where there is a slight difference in the amount of carbon, or there is some impurity
in the composition. So it's basically, you can get either black or silver, if you introduce copper into the mix, it's called kumai, you get copper color also. But that is something that I want to try out later on. Somebody has commissioned a knife with copper in it. The critical part about copper is that the temperature at which steel forge welds, about 100 degrees before that, copper melts and flows away. So there's a very narrow window where you've got to watch before the copper melts away from the billet and the steel is ready to forge weld, and you've got to do it. So I've got to experiment with that and see how to go about it. A lot of this learning is through trial and error, trying to understand material properties, trying to understand my own levels, my own skill levels, because I'm teaching myself, and a lot of YouTube and forums and researching, and then going ahead and actually doing it.
Do you have control on the temperature of your forge?
No. So the way you can guess temperature is by the color of the steel. So usually when you go to a blacksmith, like I don't know whether movies portray it properly, but blacksmith shops or blacksmith workshops, they prefer to keep it dark because they gauge the temperature of the steel by the color. So if it is dull red, it is a certain color. If it's bright red, it's a certain color. If it starts turning yellow, it's a certain temperature, not a certain color. Obviously, it's a certain color, but yeah. So if you start touching yellow, that means it's ready to forge weld. If it's white, that means it's really hot. So that is sometimes you need steel to be white hot if you're doing a different kind of forge weld. So you watch the colors and you understand the temperature. So the forge that I built, it's got regulation, it's got gas regulation and air regulation. But I just set it at one regulation and then just watch the colors and gauge from that how hot the steel is.
I'm just continuing this knife making video. What are you doing here?
So this is hand sanding. Now, once Damascus is forged out, this is just a 150 layer Damascus, but it's basically like a precious metal because you've already spent like 4 or 5 days forging a billet out. So when I was working on this knife, I really wasn't comfortable with my belt sander skills, and also because I had built the belt sander myself. The paper belt, the sandpaper belt keeps wobbling to and fro. So you come back and you do the hand sanding by hand, and you get belts only up to 600 grit. Beyond 600 grit, everything you've got to do is by hand because the belts have a joint in them. So every time the joint passes over the blade, you get a bump. So there's no point in using a machine to sand more than 600. So I do a lot of hand sanding. So and hand sanding is
did you have to
it depends on how bad my grinding was initially. If my grinding was good and there are not enough scratches, then it goes maybe a couple of days. But if I did some stupid mistakes while I'm grinding, pushed it too deep one side or had a scratch or something, and then it will take a long time. So yeah. Now after hand sanding, this is me normalizing the blade. So normalizing is where you bring it up to critical temperature and you let it cool down in air. So what happens?
What is critical temperature?
Critical temperature is where I don't remember the technical terms, but the steel grain structure starts changing. So what happens when you're forging, right? Because you're doing such violent processes to forge the steel out into a knife, there's a lot of stress that's developed within the blade. So after you're done with shaping, hand sanding and everything, you put it in the forge, you bring it up to critical temperature and you normalize it. So you let it cool down slowly. You do a couple of normalizing cycles so that the stress that's within the blade gets spread out and it's not concentrated in any one area. So if you sorry.
Yeah, someone will have to go on mute. Megha, can you go?
Yeah, I just checked it. It's clear now. I think that's an issue.
Cool. Okay. So yeah, so that's a normalizing cycle that you've got to do just to let the stresses in the steel like dissipate or at least spread out, and also the grain structure of the steel just changes in size. So that's a normalizing cycle. Yeah.
So you said you're doing your first. You
first
can see the grain pattern again over here.
No, this grain is not the pattern of the Damascus. This is within the structure of the steel.
Right. It's sort of at a molecular level or something like that. Huh?
Yeah. You'll only see the grain structure if you break the knife. So yeah.
Okay.
You've got to do a lot of practice to understand, because obviously you can't break the knife and say, "Arey, the grain structure is nice and small now, all nice and big." So you've little practice and you'll be able to get it right. Now this is quenching the steel, quenching the knife. So again, you bring it up to critical temperature and you quench it in oil. What this does is that it hardens the blade. So once it hardens, so if you can just play the video, yeah, and you quench it. People who watch Forge and Fire must have seen this like about 100 times.
This is what kind of oil is this?
I use canola oil because quenching oils like are not really available here. I'm trying to source someone, but canola oil also works pretty well. This is me testing the knife whether it's hardened or not. So that's me rubbing on it with a file, and if the file skates over the blade, that means the knife is hardened. It's hard enough. So now after hardening the blade, again it's hard, but it's very brittle because it's like suddenly made it quite hard. So you relax some of the stress by tempering it. So now this temper varies from what sort of a knife that you want. If you want a super flexible knife, you do a different tempering cycle. If you want a nice chopping knife, you do a different tempering cycle. So you do this in the oven.
What is the
Yeah.
difference between tempering and normalizing?
So normalizing, you bring it up to critical temperature and then you let it cool down slowly.
And what is critical temperature? Like 500?
Critical temperature? No. It's I think 1400 for steel. I might be wrong, but I know the color. It's like a dull red color. Or another way to know it is you stick a magnet on it. So it's also the temperature at which steel loses its magnetism. So
Wow.
you put it in the forge, and then like after about 5-10 minutes, I'll just bring it out, touch a magnet. If the magnet doesn't stick, that means it's ready for quenching. So
Nice.
that's a very jugadu way of knowing the critical temp. But so the difference so normalizing is you bring it up to critical and let it cool. Tempering is you bring it up to a certain tempering temperature and you hold that temperature, and you at that temperature you let the grain structure of the steel change and like propagate throughout the blade. That is called tempering.
How do you hold it at 225 for 2 hours in your forge?
Not at my forge. I use my oven, my mom's oven to use. So it's just 250 degrees. I do it at 240. Now, when I first started out, I used to do it at 225. But after testing, I realized 240 works out better. So 240 degrees, 2.5 hour cycles.
I think it's
two
interesting.
cycles each.
Your mom will have a cake or something baking beside your knife.
Yeah. But then I think a cake needs about 100 or 200 degrees, 180 degrees to bake. So if it's burnt, then I'm not responsible. So now you're putting in the final edge bevels. So you can't grind the edge in, because when you bring it up, when you're doing the heat treating process, if the edge is too thin because of the high temperature, it starts to melt or deform. So you don't really put an edge in until the tempering is done. So you finish your heat treat processes and then you come in and start putting an edge.
And how are you doing it with an
this is with a hand file.
With a hand file. Okay.
So this is also an angle jig that I had made for my hand file. You can see a rod. A rod that there's a position, there's a fulcrum at the front, and with that I can set the exact angle I want the file to be beveling at.
Nice.
So a chef's knife will have a 15-degree angle.
1200 grit, manually.
1200 grit. Yeah, manually. You can also see the pattern come through because it's at such a high grit. You can see the pattern already appearing. And yeah, this is the big reveal where you etch the blade. Always very, very satisfying to see a pattern come out.
This is ferric chloride.
This is ferric chloride, yeah. So this is a very initial dip. There's another longer, like you've got to do a couple of dips. You've got to rub the oxides off and then go in for a dip again. So Instagram just got a 15-second time limit, so that's what it shows. But yeah, and then you just polish over the edge, buff it so that it's nice and sharp.
This is all in your workshop?
This is all in my workshop, yeah.
Okay, now we are coming to the test. How sharp is it?
And yeah, and this is the money shot, just to see how sharp the knife is.
Crazy. Wow.
So you can see the edge is still not sharp throughout. I need a little bit more buffing and like finishing to do, but yeah, we're almost
Nice. Some more paper.
there.
Okay, some more.
I think this is where I got it nice and sharp.
Oh, so every take was after you sharpened it a bit more.
Kind of. I don't remember. This is like a long time back. Not a long time back, but yeah, I think I just voted also.
Yeah, 60 weeks.
Yeah. And this is just dropping the blade. It's you just take a leather belt or a piece of leather and you just slide the blade over it so that the burrs that are formed on the edge are gone.
Yeah. Some more cut.
Yeah, I think this is a water bottle test just to see. The first Damascus knife I completed and I sold also, so I was very excited to test it out and see how well I did.
Yeah, there's a lot of testing. There's some more testing here. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's
quite sharp.
This is complete.
That handle looks nice. You also made the handle?
Yeah. So I made the handle, and those pins are also called Mosaic Pins, where you take a copper pipe and you put in brass rods and you like fill it up with resin to get that floral kind of pattern. Again, you can manipulate those things also up to how you'd like it. And
wow, this is nice.
So, Mr. V, it's got a brass spacer also in between, I forgot. So, I like putting a lot of this tiny detail into the knives because I enjoy putting it in. At the same time, I enjoy like surprising my patrons, people who've ordered the knife. So, Mr. Veer Nakai had ordered this knife. So, thanks to him for like pushing me on this path also.
He's a collector, a chef.
He's an avid foodie. He's a motorcyclist. He goes on a lot of traveling, and then I forged another knife for him. That's also one of the highlights of my knife making. There was also one step above what I could create, and yeah, I was quite happy making it for him.
Fantastic. I think I'll okay. This is something else, but let me see. Sorry, I'm not very familiar with social media.
That's okay.
How do I stop sharing? Here we are. Stop sharing. Okay. I think that was fantastic. You went from steel to a knife. And actually, I want to show folks what you've made recently. Let me see here. Shall I? I saw something that was similar. This one. Can you tell us something about this? This also looks like Damascus Steel, the pattern.
So this was in collaboration with Jaskiran. She's an amazing wood sculptor based in Delhi. And she also does it as a hobby. So we thought, come on, let's collaborate on something. And we are planning on collaborating on a lot more projects because I think her work is really amazing. So we thought we'll start off with something small and try to understand because she's in Delhi, I'm in Hyderabad, and we didn't know whether or not she will be able to file down hardened steel like a push dagger to fit her handles and all. So we started off on this small project, but I think she did an incredible job with the handle. So she carved the handle for this. I forged the rest of the blade. But this is just a starter. She has some amazing designs that we are like looking forward to doing more collaborations for like in the incoming year. This coming up. So
this was about 5 months ago or so. That's what I
yeah.
did.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
It's been a while.
So we were talking about Damascus Steel. I read about. I mean, you spoke about it originating in South India in I don't know thousands of years.
Yeah.
That was I read that was cast versus what is done now is like you said pattern welding. What is the difference between
that was basically the Damascus was like the pattern in the steel was a byproduct of the way they used to make the steel. So they used to have these foundries where they used to put the sand and with contained iron ore and everything. And I think Kerala and Tamil Nadu were big manufacturers of this kind of steel. So it was not called Damascus back then; it was called wood steel. The woods come from a Malayali word called urupu, I think. So that means for steel. So what happens is now, because they've got this two different alloys within the ore itself, when they melt it down, those alloys mix with each other and they create a very fine pattern within the steel. So that's how it is different. So that was how the raw material came from the foundry itself, because the alloys mixed within the foundry. Over here, we take plates and then we have more control over what kind of a pattern we want to achieve, because we are physically placing the plates and layering the pattern accordingly.
Yeah, and you also showed you showed one knife where you have a pattern of a road in the middle.
Yeah.
How do you get that? You put similar alloys in that thread.
That was a very technical forging that I did. I didn't know. So this was again commissioned by Mr. Veer Nakai, and he wanted a cleaver. He just gave me complete freedom to do, and because he likes traveling a lot, so I thought maybe a highway passing through the blade would look cool. So if you can probably pull up the video of that. So I had to forge a completely one knife just to work out the pattern, and once it was successful, then I had to go ahead and forge his knife.
Let me see if I can pull that up just a minute.
Yeah.
Okay. Where is that? Is it after?
You can scroll down. Yeah, you can scroll down right there. So you can probably go to the video where I'm dipping it. So yeah, this is the road that's passing through. So each one of those dashed lines is a different piece of steel, and the black is also a different piece of steel. So basically, the black on either side of the dashed lines are two different pieces of steel, and the black that's between the dashed lines is a different piece of steel. I had to get all those geometries right and get it to forge weld. And also, when I was forge welding the blade, I had to make sure that those straight parallel lines don't deform. So maintaining that the geometry was like very difficult in this one, but I'm quite happy I managed to pull it off.
So were these at least three different billets that you had to make? I'm sure it was much.
Yeah, you can say that. It was more than that. It would have been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, at least 5 different billets. Yeah.
So 1 here, 2, then this one is 3, 4, and 5.
5. Yeah.
Crazy. So you can go crazy with the kind of pattern.
If you have patience and determination, yeah. There's another pattern called the maelstrom pattern. So that is also quite. That's a lot more intricate pattern. I think that one was made for. This is the hand sanding. You can go and show the audience the etching that happened for this one. That one. Yeah. So this is how the blade goes into the acid. You have to make sure.
How long do you have to keep it in the acid?
There are different cycles. It depends on how intricate the pattern is and what kind of contrast you want. So it takes anything between like 15 minutes to about 30 minutes. You dip it in, you clean it, you dip it in, clean it, you sand it, and then you dip it in again. So,
and this is also ferrichloride?
Ferrichloride, yeah.
That's insane. 1 second. So let me see if you have some questions that some people have asked. What type of file do you use is one question.
Yep, canola oil is what I use.
File. What kind of file do you use?
File is a normal, it's called a bastard file, but it's a normal hardened steel file. We don't get those really high quality files, or if you do get them, I can't afford them. So I prefer just going to Raniganj and buying the files that they have and using those. So.
There is, of course, a question from Rajiv. Hi, Rajiv. There's a question from Rajiv on how much does a knife cost?
Yeah, we'll answer that question at the end. Let it be like a cliffhanger for everyone. But
I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, we'll get back to it later. Pass.
The layering is for pattern, look, or to increase strength.
It is more. It's more of somebody who likes the craft, the skill that goes into it. In ancient times, wood steel or Damascus steel at that time period was definitely better than the steels that they were getting in those days, because it had two different steel alloys. It had like a sword. It has to be sharp, but then at the same time it has to be flexible. So one alloy provided the flexibility, another alloy provided the sharpness or the edge retention. And also at a microscopic level, because it's got these two different things, it would act like a razor, because the two different steels at the edge would wear differently. So in olden times, Damascus steel was definitely much better performing than other steels, and that's why probably the Ottoman Empire, that like all the wars that they won and everything, was on the back of steel that was forged in India.
What I read was even Tipu Sultan's sword.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's in the UK or someplace right now. Even that was Damascus steel, if I'm not mistaken. And Hyderabad, Telangana was a big manufacturer or a producer of wood steel. Wood steel.
Right.
Yeah.
So coming to the performance question, so in olden days, Damascus steel was definitely way better. But in contemporary times, you've got all these other modern steels available. So performance-wise, it is on par with other steels that are available. It all depends on how you forge it, how you heat treat it, how you quench it. It all depends. But the whole beauty of Damascus steel is that it has completely been created by the blacksmith or the bladesmith himself, and there's a little bit of art and novelty passed on with it, with the pattern that's within the blade. And you can also take a plain blade, you can make a laser stencil, and you can cut it out. But yeah, if for people who genuinely enjoy the work that goes into, or the skill and the craft that goes into making a Damascus blade, it's for them.
Talking about the customer, you spoke about customers and you call them patrons.
Yeah.
What kind of a customer do you usually work with, or do you usually prefer? So for example, someone asked here, are you on Etsy? Would you be okay putting it on an online portal, or would you prefer?
Not really, because it's so labor intensive that I don't really think that it is something that can be a business. It is, if you want to make a business selling knives, this is the completely wrong way to do it, because chance of failure is there at every step. And once you have a failure at one step, you cannot go back. If a billet develops a crack, you cannot re-weld it. You have one chance at forge welding that billet. If you don't, then you throw it away and then you start over again. So same thing, when you're hardening it, you get a crack, knife is gone. So it is not very it's not prone to becoming a good business. So Etsy and all, like, I'm not really like, I like making the Damascus knife. I like the effort and like the work that goes into it. So yeah, so I don't think I'll be on Etsy, at least not right now in my career as a blacksmith. But yeah.
And what about your customers? What kind of customers do you get?
I like customers who give me freedom, and not customers, patrons. I call them patrons because I don't know, it's not a business, it's not a product, they are not customers. And also, I don't take any advance, I don't take any money from them until the knife is complete. So it's all based on the honor system. You talk to me, we decide on a budget, you say what is the use of the knife, and I'll go ahead and forge it. And I will keep doing it until I get it right. So there are blades that I've finished almost, and I've seen a crack, thrown it away, and then restarted again. So it's already enough tension with all the critical processes that are there. I also don't want a customer he's given me an advance, I have to think about that also. So I think that one stress I like to remove and say, okay, you've agreed on an amount, I'll forge it for you. You like it, you take it. If not, there'll be other people to take it, or at least I'll have a knife for myself. So yeah, I also joke around saying that I can't afford my own knives because they take so much time to make, and there's so much effort that goes into making it. So the kind of customers I like is people who give me freedom and who are quite open, who also understand. Like, I've made very few knives for customers, but all of them have enjoyed it, and I have enjoyed making it for them. So I like a little bit of flexibility. Yeah.
You've started making knives like a year back, and at least a year and a few months back. What were you doing before making knives? And before that, can we get a tour of your workshop?
So this is my new workshop. People who know. Oh, this is a good question. Does Valyrian steel exist like Game of Thrones? Valyrian steel is Damascus steel. So yeah, that's the whole idea behind the steel. The whole inspiration for Valyrian steel has come from Damascus steel.
So if anyone wants a Game of Thrones steel, you can have another patron for that. Game of Thrones sword.
Sword. Oh, I can't. I don't forge swords and all because anything above 7 inches is illegal here. So to be safe, I keep my knives a little bit short lengthwise. No
Anything
swords.
above 7 inches is illegal. Why is that?
You can't have knives longer than 7 inches. It's a very murky rule, but I like to stay on the safe side of it. So people who want me to forge a katana or a whatever, a Braveheart sword and all, sorry.
I had no, and how long has this rule been there? I think that's interesting. We should probably.
It's been there for a while. So there's no hard and fast rule. It's like more of an advisory that the blade length should be 7 inches, not longer than that. If I'm not wrong, maybe there are some lawyers watching who know. And the handle length, I think including the handle, it should be less than. It should not be more than 12 inches or something like that. I'm not too sure. So.
Very interesting, because I was thinking that you could help us set up this whole forging shop at T-Works, and we could have a workshop where people can make katanas, people can make Game of Thrones swords, but we'll have to find out what is legal, what is not. Or maybe you make the sword and then you put it back and then we break it or we do something.
Yeah, we can probably make a knife for Tyrion Lannister and then it will be like a sword for him. So so that is there. You wanted a tour of the workshop?
Yeah. So all the knives we saw, you made it in your workshop.
In my old workshop. So I used to work on a small space inside my house before. Now I've moved into a bigger workshop and I'm still setting up this space. So this space that you see is my forging area. Plan to have start taking workshops also soon. We are talking to T-Works about it also. So there's plenty of space here for like a bunch of 5 or 6 people to come over and just spend a weekend just learning how to forge metal.
Megha, can we have a small survey about the workshop? What will you teach people in the workshop? I mean, what will people do in the workshop?
So ideally, I'd definitely not start off with knife making because, like I said, blacksmithing is a different skill set and knife making is a different skill set. So we'll start off with a very basic project where you learn how to learn hammer control, learn how to watch the colors of the steel, learn how to forge steel, watch how it moves, and something that you can probably take home back with you. Say that, I forged this out of a metal rod.
So we will be playing with fire in the workshop.
Yeah, definitely. And if you're not careful, then you'll probably be burning some people.
Can we have a poll asking how many people would be interested in a workshop? Whenever you. Yeah. So can you walk us through your workshop?
So, yeah, sure. I'm all dressed up for you also. So that's my forge. It's a gas-powered forge made using LPG gas cylinders. So I cut out a LPG cylinder and put insulation in it, and it's powered by an air blower. And sorry, I just got a message about the poll. How do I move out of this?
I think
there's close it.
Yeah, there's an X at the top left, I'm assuming.
I'm not able to see it. 1 second. Sorry, guys. 2 people who can't use this stuff. Anand can't use Instagram. I can't use Zoom. So yeah, sorry, I get it. There was the next. There was a close in text. Okay, cool. So we are back. That is a forge. Air blower. Air is pumped into the thing. Over here we have the LPG line. We have a throttle for the air, and we've got a needle valve for the LPG. So the LPG goes in, gets mixed with air, comes out here, shoots out flames.
And so you built this?
Yeah, I built this. So this is like a third gen of the forges that I'm making. So I had other forges there which are not happy with the design. Then this is what I've settled on. So it depends. This is like a more of a side blast forge because the flame is coming from the side. You also get a top top down forge. You get like a bottom up flame. So yeah. So this is what I'm using right now. And this is a hydraulic press that I built with a very good friend of mine. He's got a company that with CNC machines and all manufacturing. So
This is
he helped me design Top Grip. Yeah. So Yusuf from Top Grip, he's really good at all these hydraulic power pack systems and all. So he designed the power pack for me, and then we went and we sourced a second hand piston from sorry source a second hand piston from the scrap market. I think it's off a forklift or something. And yeah, I built the frame around it, and now I can squish metal with it. So this goes up to 20 tons of force. It's got two pumps in it. It's got a switching over valve. The hydraulic presses that you get in the market, they are not really good for forging because they do provide a lot of pressure, but they come down too slowly. So what happens is when you're at forge welding temperature, you bring the billet out of the forge and you want to start working quickly. But because it's so slow that you start losing that temperature before you are actually doing any forge welding. So we wanted something that moves fast, but at the same time provides the correct amount of pressure. So it's got a twin pump in it. So when it's moving top to bottom, it goes at a low pressure, high speed, and then the moment it impacts the billet, then it switches over from low speed to high pressure. So that way I can get my high pressure at the same time I can have my fast speed travel speeds. So little bit of calculations that were there into this, but yeah, this can go up to it can go beyond 20 tons, but the frame that I built is not strong enough. So I've limited it to 20 tons. It's sufficient for the kind of work that I do, but anytime I want to upgrade it, I can build a new frame and make it stronger. And yeah, that's it. And these are some. Yeah.
Is it electronically controlled or it's some pneumatic?
No. It's got a. This has got a control valve over here. So it's got two ports, one at the back and one at the bottom. So I can direct the flow to any of the ports, so either to lift it up and down. And let me just switch it on. It might get a little noisy. I'm not too sure, but. And then I've got these different dies, so I can just slide them out and then put a different die inside to do the kind of forging that I want. So the top die is removable, bottom die is removable.
So this is where you do pattern and things like that.
Yeah, it's just depends on the kind of work that I'm doing. Pattern manipulation is mostly done by hand by laying out the pattern and all. Okay. Ladder pattern specifically has got a different dies set. You can also do it by hand. This is like for quick forging. You've got like a this is for compressing it a lot more. This is for flattening it out. So yeah, those are the dies. That's my anvil, the one that I'm using. It's a 50 kg anvil. Very difficult to find good anvils in Hyderabad, or at least here in India. So you can see mine's already got these casting imperfections. It's got cracks and things in it. What I have to make do with what I have. And this is just a tong rack that I'm using. That's all the dies that are there for my forging press over there. And these are all the anvils that I've collected for the forging classes. So the forging classes, like it's taken me a couple of years to even prepare to be able to hold classes, because sourcing these anvils is difficult. So this is part of a little collection that I've been gathering. So we slowly, now that the classes are there, I've got some hammerheads. I'm making some hammers for the students to use. So yeah, that's the collection. That's all the wood handle material that I've got. A carpenter friend of mine, Aditya Somwe, he gives me his scrap wood, and a few woodworkers from Instagram send me their scrap wood. So yeah, these are different steels that I have just labeled out so that I know which steel is which. This is EN19, H13, and leaf spring, things like that. This is just random scrap from the days when I used to make sculptures, recycled metal sculptures. So just scrap from there. This is a tool that I got last night, the Makita Band Saw. So this is for cutting up wood and being self-sufficient in terms of woodworking. And also I'm hoping to be able to do some metal cutting also with this. Depends on the blade. So yeah, this is the forging area. I built a mezzanine. People who've been following me on Instagram, watching the progress of the workshop also. So all of this was like an open shed, very dirty, a lot of junk around. So I built a mezzanine, got a little bit of an office on top, bookshelf, and storage desk, and afternoon lunch nap time space over there. Build a little kitchen with another table here, stuff. Well, fridge. You guys must be seeing this in your own houses, so I'll go to the actual काम की चीज. So this is my fabrication area, and yeah, so you can see this area is being used more than that area because of how messy it is. So I've got my belt grinder here. This is an Ameri braid which I got from America. But before that, this is like the skeleton of the belt grinder that I had made by myself for forging knives on completing knives. So it's got a wheel, another arm is missing, and the motor goes at the back. So so far all the 90% of the knives that I've made have been made on this homemade belt sander, and you can see how wobbly the wheel is. So, but now I've got this professional machine to help me forge knives. It's got a lot of attachments, makes things a lot quicker, but I haven't had time to complete a knife from start to finish with this. So yeah, this is the Ameri braid. That's my Fronius MIG welding machine, MIG, TIG, and stick. So it's got 3-in-1 machine. It's a very handy machine. Small machine, expensive, but it takes a lot of abuse and it does a lot of great welding. That is my this used to be my go-to machine before I upgraded to the Fronius. Used this for quite a few years. So this is an AC/DC TIG with an arc welding option. So people who know about the Pulsar project, all the aluminum TIG work was done on this. So yeah, so this is also another machine that can do two things. AC/DC. This is a compressor that I got just to clean the dust off myself at the end of the day. Tool racks. So you can see all of this is empty. So if anybody wants to donate tools, it's here. You know where to send it. Spanners and all, everything that's needed. Bunch of angle grinders. Bench-wise, cordless drill and magnets and all. Cool. So this is the fabrication area. I'm still like setting up all of this. That's my collection of welding helmets over there. So this is also like I've been collecting them and sort of keeping them safely, so that again, if I have welding classes, the students also have some good quality helmets to use. There's a massive spanner over there. Another massive spanner over here.
That's your logo. That's your.
My logo's got a bone also in it. So this is going to be my filing, engraving, hand sanding section. So I'm just kitting it out with all different grits of sandpaper. So I've still got to organize this place. Got a bunch of different vices over here. Different oils for finishing the wood, tapes, paints, and everything. That is going to be my that table, because this IKEA tables are really nice. So they're what you can put water, fill this up with water, and you can put your sharpening stones on it, the Japanese sharpening stones, so that they're soaked in water. At the same time, you can sharpen them and keep going up the grits. So I like these.
That's what it's called. That's what is a whetstone or
whetstones, right?
WHE.
So you get these sanding stones. So this is, I think, 2400 grit sanding stone. And then I've got up to 3000 or 4000 grit. So sorry, just a second. Cool. So this is the workshop. Nice. This is a fabrication area, and yeah, this is.
And where is this located? Where is this located in Hyderabad? Or do you want to secret? I mean, that's fine.
No, it's fine, since now that we are calling people over for workshops and all. It's IKEA.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's right near IKEA. There's a big building. It's still under construction. On the outside, on the gate, it will be written Tea Works, but it's my workshop only. So
fantastic.
But no, this is opposite the fish building, below the airport expressway. So it's bang opposite it in Attapur. So.
In Attapur, right?
Yeah. So if anybody is trying to visit, you're not allowed empty-handed. You have to get something edible along with you. Yeah.
Nice, man. So we are almost out of time, but I quickly want to check with you on a couple of things. One was when we were talking the other day, you mentioned about doing your masters in the US, and that's
Yeah.
where you saw forging for the first time, or that's where you forged something at the Dallas Makerspace. Is that right?
Yeah. So I always liked like working with metal and all because I like like I said before, I like being physical and like that kind of physical effort that goes into it. So earlier I used to make sculptures out of steel. Now I was into blacksmithing. So I always wanted to get into blacksmithing. I used to watch a lot of YouTube research and again go around looking for anvils and everything. So when I was in my doing my masters in the US, there was this makerspace called Dallas Makerspace, and somewhere I saw a poster of them having a blacksmithing class. So I convinced a friend of mine to drive me down there. We were about, I think, an hour away in Fort Worth.
You had to convince a friend to come along with you, or you had to convince
Yeah.
drive you?
Well, no. He also came along. So he was also like quite interested in doing it. So we took a class of blacksmithing class. It was free. The the blacksmith just asked us to just keep forging nails the whole class. So a couple of hours we just forged nails, and at the end of the class he gave us a block of wood and he said, "Ki chalo, start hammering the nails into it," and you can see how well you did. Like it doesn't matter if they're ugly because obviously first time forging, but then you can understand once you use it, you know, okay, this is where I'm going wrong. So that was a very nice experience for me, and that was like my first step into blacksmithing. That's how it started, from a makerspace like the one that you guys are planning to have in
Yeah, and
in Hyderabad.
I'm hoping we can do something similar. I mean, given that you've gone through all of this, I'm hoping we can do something similar.
Definitely.
The second, okay, we have some questions here which I've been conveniently ignoring for some time.
Sure. Yeah.
Do you have any art using heat oxidizing steel or stainless steel to create yellows, blues, or violets?
Yeah, we can do that. Like you need a little bit of understanding of how to do it, but yeah, it can be done. I don't have any art as such, but there are certain people who TIG weld on stainless steel, so you get those rainbow hues. But that is a very difficult thing to do for me. But something like when I even temper steel, right? When you're not doing an oven temper, when you're doing a forge temper, you can see the colors. You can see it go from purple to dark blue to light blue to straw to silver. You can see those colors. So I do a lot of these live shows where people can on Instagram where people join in and watch the different processes that go on. It's always noisy because there are a lot of machines that and a lot of hammering and all of that. But people say that they learn a lot through the process through those shows. So yeah, you can watch that.
Do you have like someone you follow, like a guru, or is this YouTube? YouTube is your place?
Not really a guru, I would say. It's more just absorbing information, absorbing ideas from everywhere, and doing it. The blacksmiths that are there in Europe and America and all who are actually driving this craft, they are very open with their information. They're very open. It's not like the community is not very close. Like, ki, I have figured out this pattern, so I'm just going to do it, and I'm going to sell knives. I'm going to make money out of it. They're very open. The information is out there for anyone who wants to learn. They're always very helpful in case to do it. I've got a calendar over here that supports all these international blacksmiths. So it's their work in it. So I'm also trying to give back to them if I can.
Nice. Let me see. Indians were known for the best in metallurgy, like invention of non-rustic metal pillars. Are we still the best?
We are not the best now, I would say, because we are all running towards a different goal. Very few people are going back to the traditional crafts and trying to understand. Like, we've forgotten how to work with our hands. We are all on laptops and Zoom calls, and now though it's work from home, so we are even lazier now. But yeah, I wouldn't say that we aren't the best. See, this Damascus steel was a craft that we were known for, but now people in India themselves don't know about this. But we have the ability to become the best again if we start striving towards something, start trying. For me to figure out the recipe for Damascus steel took me so long because there was nobody to guide me. The steels that they use in America and all, The grades are different. The manufacturers over here are different. Spending a lot of time looking at compositions, trying to first on paper see if this steel matches with this steel, because there's a lot of things that have to match when you're using two different materials. Even though they're steels, their hardening temperatures have to be in the same range. The forge welding temperatures have to be in the same range. The alloys have to merge with each other, allow that bonding process and all. So I would say the craft is pretty much lost over here. But hopefully, with the things that I am learning and the things that I am figuring out, I want to be able to say, ki, if another blacksmith comes up to me and says, ki, I want to make Damascus steel, I can tell him, ki, fine, use EN42G, EN42J, use EN31 if you want this and all. And yeah. So sorry, that was a digression from his question, but yeah, that's, I think,
what's at stake when you are quenching the knife for the second time after a failed one?
There's no quenching after a failed one. If it's failed, then you're not going in again. But yeah, if you're building another one, usually I'm much more safer in the second one. I'm more aware of my mistakes, and because I've already failed the first knife, I'm more careful about how to go about it. So it's more relaxed, I would say, because I've already failed, and I know that I'm not going to fail now because I've corrected my mistakes. So I would say failing at one knife and then going and quenching building another knife and quenching it again, it's a little bit more relaxed.
How are your grinding welding skills when you are in your masters?
Very bad, I would say. Obviously, well, when you're starting out, you're always going to start out at the bottom. So nothing great, but the idea is to keep at it. And also, that's how I got into this field, is that because I wanted to learn how to weld, but not sit every day and just weld. So I used to pick up these different projects to keep things interesting for me and to keep things challenging for me. So I started off with making furniture. Then I moved to making sculptures from recycled metal, because recycled metal is just available everywhere and very cheap. So it's like a very cheap raw material where I can just load it up and bring it to my workshop and make something out of it. So I started off with sculptures, and then the sculptures itself was a good way for me to learn how to grind and all, because when you're making sculptures, you don't want your welds to be visible, or you want your welds to be neat, because you're showcasing it as an art. So you can also do shitty welds and say, hey, that's art. Okay. But yeah, my aim was something else. So they were bad, but you keep doing different projects, you keep going at it, and when you're bad, the only thing you can do is be better. So improvement is just a natural thing.
How did metalwork become your passion? Any particular reason or incident which made you so curious about this?
Not really incident. Like I said, I like that physical effort. I was a lot into sports and hockey, basketball, and when I was in college and in school and all. When I graduated, I felt that thing, okay, fine, like friends and all have gone their separate ways. They've all gotten big tummies and become lazy. But so I needed some place to vent out my physical exertion or whatever. So instead of going to a gym and just like that, I thought, why not create things? Like, I find it a waste of time just going and like working out that they say without any end goal apart from looking good. So that's how I got into metalwork, and it's progressed. Now I'm into blacksmithing and forging, and I still do metalwork, but yeah.
Is your workshop just for metals, or can you also do woodworking?
Woodworking to a small extent, because I don't have many woodworking tools. But if you're doing small stuff, yes. Like, yeah, I mean, small things, yes, it is cut out to be. The band saw is the biggest woodworking machine that I've gotten yesterday. So that is one thing. But you don't really want fire and everything next to a woodworking setup. So small woodworking projects can be done. Yeah.
So you recently, can we talk about the movie project? Are you allowed to talk about the movie project?
Depends on the question. So,
but okay,
I won't be able to go into details. So I think we can keep it aside, or we can just say something.
Yeah, I mean, whatever you want to say. It sounds very exciting though.
Okay. You can phrase it in a question and then I'll know what to say. Oh, fine. So basically, this year I've not been able to take up much commission work and not do projects of my own because I'm involved in another project. Even though my role is very small in the project, it's quite time consuming. So there's a sci-fi movie that's coming up that me and a team of other engineers and people who like to make things are helping out with the engineering of the props, engineering of the vehicles and everything. So it's a movie that's set in the future, but apart from that, I won't be able to tell much. Sorry.
Nice. So when the movie comes out, maybe.
Maybe, yeah.
And I also, there's a lot of stuff we can go through your Instagram profile and check it out. But what I have to do is talk a bit about T-Works. Can we have a poll? Okay, how many of y'all who are here do not know about T-Works? You can just say, I don't know about T-Works, or you can just say no. Because if everyone does know about T-Works, I can just keep it short. But anyway, I can give a few details about T-Works. Okay, Ibad is there. So for Ibad's sake, I'll quickly walk through some of the stuff we are doing at T-Works. After which, Saad will tell you how much he sells his knives for. Can you guys see things? Okay, so T-Works is going to be a very large prototyping center. We recently came to know, or sort of with some research, and found out it will be India's largest and the second largest globally. It's got a lot of different stuff. It's got woodworking, pottery, a lot of metalworking. I think, if I'm not wrong, some of the T-Works folks are here on the call. But our largest investment in space and in terms of funds is going into the metal and machine shop. We've got welding, metrology, lathes, turning centers, milling centers, 4-axis machines, fiber laser cutters, so on and so forth. It's got also major focus on electronics because we are looking at helping people build products. So I think we'll have what we believe will be India's first PCB fabrication center for prototyping, where you can make up to a 6-layer board within 24 to 48 hours. We have a pre-compliance facility where you can test your products for humidity, temperature, vibration, altitude, so on and so forth. We have industrial grade, commercial grade 3D printers, and we also have a finish shop. We have spray painting, powder coating, anodizing in phases, but that's the plan. So this is what the building looks like. In fact, this was one of the drawings the architect gave us. We are working with a very nice architect from Bangalore. So some of the details of the facility: multi-layer PCB fabrication, PCB assembly, pre-compliance, CNC pipe bending, a wood shop, garage base, so on and so forth. This is the floor plan. This will be the ground floor. It's a 78,000 square foot facility. So the ground floor, this area is the metal and machine shop, the PCB fab, the finish shop, plastics and composites will be here. This is garage bay. This is the garage bay where it can be split into different units. And if Saad is building something bigger tomorrow, if he's building a bike, if he's customizing a bike, you should go through his Insta profile and look at the Pulsar that he's modified. If he's building something like that, he can take a small space. He can take a small space here and build it. We've got cafe because we need to eat. We've got a wood shop and an amateur maker space. So this amateur maker space is unique because it's designed for children, so that they don't cut their fingers or get injured. So we have equipment specific for them. Saad, are kids allowed in your workshop?
Yeah, definitely. I've got my nephews and nieces who come over and they do get hurt, but then they enjoy that also. So
okay.
they've got a small anvil and small hammers of their own. So they do a little bit of folding also.
Do their parents enjoy that?
Yeah, they don't have a say in it because the kid just says, I'm going to Sachacha's workshop and comes off. So, yeah.
Fantastic. So there's an amateur maker space. This is, let's see. Sorry, where did I go? I went. Let me just. Sorry. I think it was a link to some other slide. Here we are. Okay, just went mad. This is the second. So this is the ground floor. This is the first floor where it's got some other stuff like pottery, studio spaces. It's got a retail store where. So the unique thing is, if say you're building something, say you're forging some metal, you need some specific material, some specific consumables. You can buy it from within T-Works. So of course we have a retail store here, but each shop will have its own consumable section where you can store and you can buy consumables. Pottery, pre-compliance, studio spaces, and on the top floor you have a bit of 3D printing and a lot of space to sit. This is where the building is at currently. It's almost done. We are hopefully we'll move in. Some of the equipment is already there. These are some renders of what it looks like inside the building. This is how you enter. This is the atrium. One second, there's another pole. Sorry about that. This is the metal shop. Saad, you were asking about the curtains in the weld section. This is what it looks like.
Okay.
Over here at this end. But the team can give you more details. But this is the metal and machine shop essentially. Let me see. The wood shop, cafe, prototyping space. This is the library, and this is how it looks from the far end. So we have a couple more things. We have a couple of services that we run. Let me see if I can get to it. If users want to work with us, you can go to proto.tworks and use 3D printing, CNC routing, laser cutting, all sorts of you can get done at T-Works. We also have a product design and development service. You want to work with us, you're a startup, you want to build some products. You can, or you're just a hobbyist, you want to build a proof of concept. You can come to us and we can work something out. So that's about T-Works. If you have any questions, you can put it in the chat box. We'll try to answer it.
One thing, can I just add something? Sorry, if you're done.
Sure. I'm done.
So I just want to address everyone who's watching is that T-Works is a facility that's being built up, but it has to be driven by the community. It has to be enjoyed by the community. And it's going to be a while until it gets set up. But the way, at least with my discussion with Anand, is that it has to be driven by the community. So you can think of it as like an empty canvas right now with the kind of things that we need, but it has a scope to grow into something much bigger depending on the kind how the community drives it. So it's also a good opportunity for people who want to get started with the basics of getting to know these tools, learning how to design or learning how to fabricate things. We are just, this is just out there that we are planning out, but this place is going to need tables, this place is going to need stools, it's going to need tool racks and all. So why don't we get together as a community and we start building these, fabricating these, and also start learning along the way on how to go about it. So that's just one point that I wanted to add to everybody, is that it is something that's being built and given to the community, but it has to be maintained and driven and pushed and grown by the community itself. So that is what we hope to build with these kind of webinars and to have these sort of workshops where we start getting everyone together and start sharing knowledge and start learning new skills and start growing as people.
Thanks, Saad. And that's exactly what we want to do. And it's actually very similar to how the Dallas Makerspace ran. And you are you are someone who's worked there and come back. And I'm sure they would be proud to know that you have given them a shout out. So I do have a lot of other stuff to talk about. I want to show folks your bike, but I'm sure we can put it out there. There are a few questions. Let me see. After we design a prototype at T-Works, will you help us find a manufacturer? Absolutely. We have connects with manufacturers, manufacturing service providers, electronic manufacturing service providers. If required, we can definitely do that. Is there any infrastructure ready already? Could you tell what are your current services, like what can happen at T-Works? So currently we are working out of a smaller space in Begumpet, but we've got a decent amount of equipment. The good thing is we've also connected with other fabrication centers in Hyderabad. And if you have a job that you want to do, hit us up on the website on proto.tworks. We are available on WhatsApp and email, and we can work something out. So current services, I mentioned Proto.tworks and product design and development. Those are what we are currently running. Any comments on the fellowship? When and who all will be selected? Very good question. We have a fellowship program running where we call for applications and we get a varied skill set of folks who apply. It's sort of also part of this whole community participation thing where people who are interested in making, who are interested in exploring and experimenting, can come to TWorks. For all practical purposes, fellows are like part of the team. Fellows are part of the team, and there are some things that we have to do to sustain TWorks to build the community, and there are some things that you would want to do, you would want to learn. So we try to find a balance. Mega has put a link over here. So I think the last day for the fellowship is the 15th, if I'm not mistaken. I think a month or so after that, or 2 months after, I think we've given ourselves 45 days to complete the process this time around. Last time we took forever because we had about 3,000, 4,000 applications. So that's it about TWorks. Thanks, Rishant. Even if you're not a fellow, you can definitely be a part of TWorks, like Saad said. We have limited bandwidth, limited capability, limited resources, but the community has unlimited resources. So you can definitely be a part of TWorks, whether you're in the fellowship or not. Doesn't matter. So Saad, the final question, coming to the business side of things. I don't know whether people expected us to talk more about business. We both know it's important, but I guess at least I'm more interested on the process that you use to make your knife, for example. But how easy or difficult has it been for you to make a business out of this?
Business. The thing about I'm active on Instagram and also social media. Appreciation, there's a lot, and genuine appreciation is also there. But trying to make a sale is quite difficult. So business definitely has its ups and downs. This I did not really get started off with a workshop. I worked for 5 years in R&D, and the workshop was something that I used to do after office hours and during the weekends. I used to build things and I used to take it to galleries and try to sell it. And they would say, "No, you're not good enough. So go back and try to improve my work." So, but right now, I think I've reached a position where enough people know of me and of my work that I am at a liberty to pick my projects and also pick the kind of people that I work with. That has taken time to develop. And about a year or couple of years back, I can't remember, but I quit my job and I got into this full time. And as with any artist who's quitting their job and getting into their art form full time, it was a lot of thinking and wondering whether or not I'll be able to succeed or make it, and a lot of planning and all. But so far, it seems to be good. I'm not regretting anything, but I wouldn't suggest anybody to do that, like to just quit their job without thinking. But it's like I'm good. So far, it's good. Business is okay. There are lean periods, there are good periods. So the best part I like is that I'm a master of my own ship. So if I feel like I need more money, I can just wake up early, work harder, and earn more money. Or if I feel like I'm just feeling lazy, especially during Ramzan or during summers where I'm fasting and I can't forge, so I can just take the month off or take a week off. It's up to me, and yeah, so that's there.
Nice. And how much, if I want to buy a knife, how much will it cost?
It'll cost you probably the CNC access in TWorks. So, like I said, it's not a product; it's not for sale. But yeah, coming to the questions about pricing and all, each knife is different, and each knife is like you put your heart and soul into it. It depends. Very difficult to put a margin. The way I do it is by how complex the pattern is, irrespective of the size of the knife, whether you want a small camping knife or a large knife, because it becomes very difficult to demarcate like a price slab for everything. Yeah. So depending on the complexity of the pattern, depending on how much effort that goes in just forging the pattern, forget the knife, forging the pattern, that is how I mark it out. So it starts around 14,000 for a very low layer count knife, 14,000 to 18,000 for the higher count or complex patterns like 100 layers or very complicated pattern like the maelstrom pattern. I don't think but that goes around 20K to 28K. and all. So
And
I
this
al-
takes you,
yeah.
how long does it take you to make a knife? Like the video we saw took you about a week, I think about 5 or 6 days.
It generally takes me a week. I'm happy with spending a week on a knife because that way I can like give enough attention. And I also don't take multiple orders at a time. It's one knife, focus on it, complete it, be happy with it, and move to the other one. But if a pattern is very complex, which means like, so for complex patterns, you start with like a 3 kg block of billet, and then you manipulate it by the time you end with like 200-gram knife. So complex patterns will take about a couple of weeks. So also depends on if there are any failures in between. Like I said, I don't take an advance. I don't. It's just on a system word of mouth. Like you say you want a knife, we settle on a price and we do it. And the customer only pays for it after the knife is complete. He sees it and he or she is happy with it.
Fantastic, yeah. And I think, I mean, for the kind of effort you're putting in, and I don't know any other blacksmiths in Hyderabad like you, or artist blacksmiths in Hyderabad, or anywhere in India for that matter. You did tell me about a couple of other artists who are there on Instagram. But for the kind of skills you have and the kind of effort you're putting in, maybe you can bump that price up also.
It's also depending on the market here. So Indian market is like fine. Like if I can sell one Damascus knife a week, that is great. But there has to be awareness to grow the market here, because the same knife that I forge here, if I was in another country where people appreciate it more, it would be selling for twice the amount that I'm charging here. So I don't try to be cynical and say, "Ki, "Arey, main India mein phas gaya, to what is this? There's no market and all." I try to continue doing good work, and you just have to like put your head down and keep working, and automatically that market will develop, the appreciation will come. And so it's been only a year since I've got into Damascus knife making, but so far it's been good, and I'm just looking forward to pushing myself more. And if not me, I might inspire somebody else to come up with some amazing patterns, amazing forging, or somebody else to uh, take up knife making or blacksmithing. So that is it.
I want to leave the audience with an image of. Actually, there are a lot with this image. Just hold on.
Hope it's not a bike.
It is the bike. Can you guys see this? Yeah, this is the bike. This is Saad's bike. Saad, is that correct? This is your bike, right?
Yeah, you can say so. But it's Kishore Krishnamurthy's image. But yeah, the bike was built along with my brother.
This is the one.
That's a Pulsar.
Yeah, this was the Pulsar that you built, and this is you on the Pulsar.
Is that me? Yeah, that's it.
Nice. So this is also something you do on the side.
Yeah.
And your dad, you told me, restores vintage cars and collects vintage cars.
Yeah. So he had a small workshop where he used to buy these junk vintage cars and restore them, and also do it for others. So he's also got a small vintage car collection of his own.
Nice. So it runs in the family.
You can say so.
So thanks so much, Saad, and that's all I had. And
cool.
That's all we had. I hope, Saad, you had dinner. I hope all you guys had dinner. Or if you haven't, then you should definitely catch some grub. So that's all we have, guys. And we'll continue this. And Saad has talked about a few artists on this webinar. We'll most likely reach out to them and invite them for the next set, but we'll keep continuing the series. The plan is to do it once in 2 weeks approximately. And I hope the community continues to support. And tomorrow you guys can be hosts for these webinars. That's all we have. Megha?
Yeah, I think just wanted to add a couple of things. So there were 17 people who voted for for having the workshop with Saad. So you guys can follow us on Instagram or Saad on Instagram. I have shared both the links, and we'll keep giving updates whenever the workshop is happening. Second thing, I think so many people want another webinar with Saad. We'll surely plan one of that in future as well. So Saad, see, you're in demand.
Okay.
And thank you so much, Saad. It was a great session. Thank you, Anand, and thank you everyone for joining in. It's great to have you all. So stay connected. We'll be coming up with a couple of more webinars, and hope it's adding value to you. Thank
Okay,
you.
sir. Okay, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you
Bye,
so
guys. Khudafis. Thank you, everyone, for listening to us. Bye.
Bye. Bye.